to how to raise your son to be a man of valor. And I would like to ask, I know there are some people who are watching us online, but I want to ask this evening of those who are in the church, let me see how many parents or grandparents are here. Please lift your hand. Okay, fantastic. We have quite a few. Of the parents who are here, how many fathers or grandfathers are here? Fathers or grandfathers are here. Okay, so we have fathers being like half the number of the mothers who are in the, we are here today. Yeah, I think that is usually expected. That is what we see, but I believe the fathers could be watching us online and they could be watching us also the next time. No? So before we get into our message today, shall we pray? Father, in the name of Jesus, I want to thank you once again for this opportunity. I pray that you use me once again, as you have done before, that I will deliver a message that is going to have an impact on your people. That at the end of the day, somebody will say, I have tasted the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. May your name be glorified, may your name be praised. Even those who are watching us online, I pray that you will be with them, Lord, that you may bless them with the word in season. May you take control of this meeting now till the end, for in Jesus' name we have prayed and believed. Amen, amen, amen. So I trust that today I'll take a bit of a shorter time so that I can give us time to interact, maybe ask questions, maybe make comments, because that's the essence of the sessions that we are having. I was raised in a community that is very patriarchal, that everything that we did as women, it was about doing it for the men. We would be told, when we went to school, we would be told, work very hard so that you can get good grades, and so that you can get good grades or maybe a good job so that you can be married. If you are being taught how to cook, you are being told that you need to learn how to cook ugali so that when you get married, you will stay in your home because you can cook. If you are being taught how to work in the shamba, you are being taught to do it so well because you are going to get married so that you can stay. So everything that we did as girls, as women, it was being done so that you can get married, so that you can be marriageable. It was so bad that even female genital mutilation that is being practiced in my community to date among Seventh-day Adventists who are educated, it was so that you can get married. And yes, it's practiced by women on the girl child, but the view in mind is so that they can make the girls marriageable. And for a long time, I thought that this patriarchy is men are having it easy. But I have since realized that patriarchy does not benefit anybody. It does not benefit men, it does not benefit women. Because while on the flip side, women may look like they're the ones who are oppressed, the men are having a lot of challenges because men are not expected to have emotions, men are not expected to cry, men are not expected to lack, men are not expected to struggle. And patriarchy is not about men oppressing women, neither is it about a particular man, but it's about a perception by society that does not benefit anybody. A few years ago or months ago, I was talking to a man who had been married for just about a year, and he was going through a lot of trouble in his marriage. And when the woman or the lady would give her side of the story, they were both faithful Adventists. When she would give her side of the story, the impression was like the man is, she's being abused. Now, when the man was giving his side of the story, it gave me a perception that made me change my thinking or maybe relearn. As Janet said yesterday, we are learning and learning and relearning. And this man was going through terrible abuse emotionally. And he didn't have a language because as a man he was raised to know and to think and to feel that a man cannot be abused. So he didn't have a language to explain what he was going through and the expectations he was having. And this man told me that I have been talking to the pastor, and I'm telling the pastor who wedded us that I want to leave the marriage. Not leave the marriage as such, but I want to move on because I'm getting so stressed. And she said the pastor told him that when you are men don't quit. Men don't quit, you have to stay. So for that reason, he was staying in this, let me call it, toxic environment. And he told me, I have 4 options. I think he gave me 4 options. I said, which ones? He said, the first option is that I want to start drinking. He had never drunk. He was raised in the church and was a faithful Adventist. He said, I want to start drinking because I have to find a way of coping with this pain. I said, what is the second one? He said, the second one, I'm not a violent person, but I want to hit somebody so hard that I don't know whether she'll wake up alive. I said, okay, that second one. What's the third one? He said, the third option is, I feel like getting into an extramarital affair. I said, okay, third one, let's talk about the fourth one. What's the fourth one? He said, the fourth one, I want to get into pornography or masturbation as a way of pleasuring myself. I said, okay, 4 options. Do you have any other? He said, I don't see any other because I've been told that as a man, I cannot move out of the home. So I said, okay, those options that you have given, is there any that you see that will not harm you, to not harm another person, or it will not cause you to be harmed? He said, no. All the options is either I'm harming myself, I'm harming another person, or I'm being harmed. I said, is that fair for you? Do you really want to do this? He said, no. I said, let's think about it. What's the 5th option? Because there's always another option. Don't tell me about praying, because he had prayed and fasted until his intestines were getting out of through his mouth. So don't tell me about praying and fasting, but he had done that already. He said, the 5th option is that I can pack my things and leave. So I said, of the 5 options, which one looks the healthiest for you, for the other person? He said, I will leave. And that's what he did. He packed and he left. And he had been told, including by the pastor, that no, wanaume are talking, you can't. How can a man can't leave? You see how patriarchy does not even help anyone. So this man was dying slowly every day because he was told you can't leave, you know. We need to realize as Christians that some of these expectations we put on our sons and our men, they are more cultural than biblical. And we confuse and think it's biblical, but it's cultural. So fast forward, this man left. 6 months later, I said, what do you feel about it? He said, all those things he had wanted to do, drink, beat someone, get into masturbation, pornography, what he has no desire whatsoever. 6 months after leaving the marriage, moving out, he said, I have no desire to do any of those things. I'm actually serving God, and I'm healthier mentally than I've ever been. I said, no, give it time, let's talk. Well, the story does not have a very good ending, or it has a good ending. I don't know how you want to look at it, but please don't pick this information and start writing comments for me and say you should have done, you should have done. I'm just giving a bit of the story, not the full story. So eventually, after some time, we talked recently, and he told me that I have initiated the divorce proceedings that they are going through. I said, is that what you want to do? He said, yes. I am happier and healthier than I've ever been, and the more I'm out of this marriage, the more I have made up my mind I'm never ever going back again. And yeah, so the story, depending on how you want to look at it, whether it has a good ending or bad ending, for me, looking at the mental health of this gentleman, the story has a good ending, because he now chose, he's serving God, and he's not doing any of, he never ventured into any of those things. I don't know about you today, but the question I ask, how many men have chosen either of those 4 options because of what they are going through? And because society has told them, or religion, not spirituality, has told them that a man cannot, a man should. I have decided personally, I'm raising 3 sons who are strong men, and I have decided to throw away all those cultural expectations. and throw away and burn the box. And nobody, I always tell them, nobody should tell you that a man should not cry. Yeah? Nobody should tell you that a man should always have money. That a man should be the one to take a woman out. That a man should. As if men are a homogeneous mixture. Okay? Now, I was asking that question of how many fathers are here, because the fathers are the role models of the sons. And if our sons are looking around, I don't know about this church, but they're looking around, and the church is feminized in a way that most of the people on your pews, they are women. What models are these sons getting? If our sons look and they see that most of the people who serve in church, apart from the elders wearing suits, but the people who do the donkey work in church, so to speak, and I say this is my first time in Victory, so I don't know what happened. But if they notice that the people doing all this work are women, the church is feminized. And the men now begin seeing, this is not the place for men. Men need to be at the table of men. You know what they say, be at the table of men? Yeah. So it's important for us to be consciously aware that even the character we were talking about yesterday, character is caught much more than taught. We can speak, we can say what we want to say, but what our children catching, they need to catch the character. And yesterday, as I said, and as you can see in the poster, for those who have seen, our overarching verse is Psalms 144 verse 12. And this is what it says. It's on your poster. It says, then our sons in their youth, they will be like well-nurtured plants, and our daughters will be like pillars carved to adorn a palace. So we'll talk about daughters tomorrow. Today we are talking about sons. And I just want to tell you, just to go back on the point I say, character is taught much more than taught. We have a young man in the Bible who caught the character of his peers. And this is what happens when we don't have strong, solid, mature men beside our sons. When we don't have them, we have our sons identifying themselves with the masculine characters that they see on TV, among the artists or whatever, and that is what they follow. And this young man in the Bible, from the book of 1 Kings chapter 12, 1 Kings chapter 12, you can read the entire chapter at your own time. We have the story of Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. Solomon was the son of King David. King David was the man after God's own heart. He got Solomon through adultery with Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. So he got Solomon. And before David died, he charged Solomon to show himself a man. And when Solomon was, God appeared to Solomon and he asked him what he would like, Solomon asked for knowledge and wisdom. For me, if I was Solomon, I was going to ask for riches. I'm not relying. I was going to ask for beauty and riches. I was not going to ask for, wisdom, knowledge, hiyo tutapatana mbele. That wacha nipate beauty na pesa kwanza, zingine tutapatana mbele. But Solomon actually asked for knowledge and for wisdom. This same Solomon later on, his story was not so good midway, but it ended well. He got many women and concubines. So he had a son, Rehoboam, who took after him. And so this son took after him. And from the book of 1 Kings chapter 12, I will read verse 8. Let me read, we will do a lot of Bible reading. I'm going to read from verse 8 to verse 10 in your hearing. And this is what he says. Let me give a bit of a background. So Rehoboam, when he took over the kingdom, the people came to ask him, they came to ask him how he would like to rule. They had a request for him. So Rehoboam talked to the older men who were counselors. They used to counsel their father. He talked to them and they advised him to lighten the burden of the people, to make their burden lighter. But Rehoboam decided to also consult his peers, his friends. And I say that's what happens when our children don't have solid men that they can look up to. So when he consulted the peers, he decided to actually follow the counsel of the peers. So this is what the Bible says. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and who stood before him. And he said unto them, What counsel give you that we may answer these people, who have spoken to me, saying, Make the yoke which your father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spoke unto him, saying, Thus shall you speak unto these people that spoke unto you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, but you make it lighter unto us. Thus shall you say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. And now, whereas my father did lay upon you with a heavy yoke, I will add upon your yoke. My father has chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So the younger men incited him to make it heavy upon the people. When you read further, you will realize that caused a division. So the Israelites, he remained with the two tribes, the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, and then that was the northern kingdom, I think. Then the southern kingdom, they departed and they had their own king. And that's how the kingdom was split. So you will find that you keep reading the Bible, you have the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom. Later there was even a war that almost occurred between these two sections, I can say. And you remember yesterday we were talking about Ichabod, the glory of the Lord has departed. And we see the glory of the Lord departing from the house of King David through the grandchild Rehoboam. And you ask, what really happened? And this is an important scripture for us, because I always ask myself, who is the epitome of masculinity in our sons, in our boy children, particularly the ones in the church? Who are they looking up to? Because truth be told, boys yearn for dads who are involved in their lives. Dads who can provide moral and spiritual direction. Dads who can affirm them. And dads who are life-giving. On the same hand, women desire men who are going to protect them. Women desire men who will protect them. Not men who are going to use them. Society also needs men who are going to stand for moral absolutes. That is what the society is looking forward to. But we need to ask ourselves, we need to stop and ask ourselves, where are these men? Where are these men? Because we are having them being nurtured, growing. Even the grown men, they were children, they were boy children one day. And the values that they hold, they are values that were instilled when they were very young. In the ambassadors class this afternoon, we learned that 0 to 12 years, the self-esteem is determined by the parents. And as much as the child will go through challenges when they are grown and when they are adults, if they have a strong anchoring in terms of the foundation that was set by the parents, they are going to go back. Those who have built, they can tell you that they invest a lot of time and resources on the foundation. That however beautiful a building looks, as long as the foundation is not strong, the building will actually not hold. Can I also say that from a public health perspective, I'm a public health specialist, from a public health perspective, if you have a house and it has a crack on the roof, there is hope for the house. It's not condemned. If you have a house and it has a crack on the wall, it may not be condemned. But if you have a house and there's a crack at the foundation, that's a condemned building. You cannot do anything to that building. It's actually condemned. It's not fit for people to live in. So our foundation is critically important. In Nairobi, we have a lot of high-rise buildings that many times they fall. And they actually kill many people. They are very dangerous. Because they are put up to 8th, 10th, 9th floor, and the foundation is weak. So it's critically important for us to ask ourselves, what are our children, our sons, particularly today we are looking at, what are they consuming? And it's sad that many parents think, fathers especially, and on your case today, many times fathers think that when a child is young, born, wachapambane na mamake. Like let the mother take care. When they are grown, you are now going to sit and talk. Then you start talking to your teenager, you're looking at them, you're like, how do we talk? My son, you're a man. And they're looking at you like, get lost. Where have you been? Me, I don't know you. Because you are thinking, at now they are going through the rites of passage, at now they are men now, let's talk. You know, it's very interesting. I've seen that because I've had my sons go through that process. And then sometimes you start being told that, oh, a woman should not see them, a woman should not give them food, it should just be men. I'm like, where were you when they were growing up and I was bathing and changing? Suddenly you want to now appear. And what has changed? Just because of a procedure of a few minutes now, you suddenly want to tell me my son is on the other side. Maybe the intention of this rite of passage was good, but I need to be helped to understand what has changed. So it's critical for us to model for our sons even as they're growing, so that they can know how to talk like men, behave like men, be like men, healthy men, not toxic men. Now, there are two critical stages that a boy child especially, they need the presence of their father, and this is for a reason. The first stage is between 3 to 5 years. Between 3 to 5 years, a boy craves for the presence of the father. And for those who have raised boys, you will see them beginning to wear their father's shoes. They start wearing their father's jacket. They start asking Daddy or Wapi. They start saying, Mimi come Daddy. And it's sad for those who don't have their father's presence, okay? So this is a stage whereby they begin realizing that they are looking more like their fathers. They don't look like their mothers or their sisters. It's a stage that is called disconnection and differentiation. They are disconnecting from the female who has been their primary caregiver to be a male. And then they are also now to differentiate into a male. So it's important for the father to be present throughout, that particularly this stage is very critical, so that they can start identifying, and you'll hear them telling you, Mr. Kikuva pink. When my son was younger, the last one, I had bought for him some cute pink checked shirt and a pink jeans. What was I even thinking about? So I used to dress him in it. When he got to about 5, 6 years, he said, no, I cannot wear pink. Pink is for girls, you know. So they begin, because they are beginning now to say, I'm different. You know, I'm different. I can't, and it's sad sometimes when I see in church and the father is also there, but the mother is there. The child wants to go to the bathroom, washing. Imagine the mother has to take him to the ladies. How sad is that? The mother takes the boy to the ladies. And then the boy there in the ladies is seeing people squatting and using tissue. Then the boy is also squatting. Because even at home, the person taking care of him is a female. The kindergarten cradle teacher is a, the ECD teacher is a, honestly speaking, character is caught much more than taught. The average 5-year-old boy, the lucky one, spends 80% of his time with women. True or false? True or false? 80%. And then we expect him to talk like a man, behave like a man, walk like a man. How? How is that going to happen? It doesn't. It doesn't. So it's critically important, particularly in that stage. The next stage that a child craves, a boy child craves the presence of the father is during teenage. Because at that period, teenage, we can say from the age of 9 to even 24, actually. There's a reason. That definition of teenage, I've given it deliberately for a reason. 9 to 24. They crave the presence of their father. You know why? Because at that point, the body of a boy child changes. And it actually exceeds his ability to understand what is happening. He's overwhelmed by emotions and hormones. And he actually gets confused by all that is happening in his body. His sexual desires become so intense and so predominating. A boy needs a father's presence to help him make sense of what is happening to his body. And when I say father, I know there are those whose fathers are not present. I mean a father figure. So don't ask what about the father is not there. It can be anybody, a father figure, a grandfather, an uncle, a teacher, someone, but at least somebody who is a father figure. So boys tend to be heavily involved emotionally with their fathers as role models. Even if they spend more time with their moms, their sisters, and their peers, they look up to their fathers for cues as to how to act out their male roles, and specifically later on their roles as fathers. Sorry. It's important for grown men to help boys to cope with what they are going through. The men would tell me, the boys would say, when a mother tells you, my son, you have done very well, this is excellent, it's important. But when a father says those words, do we say it's important or it's importantest? When a mother says that's okay, that's good. But when a father says those words, it means so much. I don't know how many fathers say that, but personally, what I have seen from my community and the people around me, I've seen fathers talking, especially when their sons are not doing well. They will complain, they will ask, people are agreeing with me. But when the sons, today I'm talking sons, girls don't feel left out, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But so it's rare, okay, sometimes it happens, but most of the times I hear when fathers are talking to their sons, it's negative. It's because you're not doing this, you're not doing the other. A few fathers would say, I'm proud of you, my son. You're doing so well. My son, you're strong, you're great, you're intelligent, I believe in you. Very few fathers would say that. The time they are talking, they say, you know, something. Man up! In our culture, in our community, in our family, we don't have men who are, you know, that's how they are mentored with the sons, but not affirming them positively. And that's a big challenge. In fact, did you know that, contrary to what people think, on the physical side, you can say the girl child is vulnerable physically, but did you know that emotionally, the boy children are more vulnerable? Did you know that? As a matter of fact, more infants die, boys, than girls. More infants die. More boys die in their infancy than girls. When parents go through divorce or separation, it affects both genders, but it's specifically very difficult for boys. There are more boys who are convicted for delinquency, for stealing and killing and gun violence and tricking than girls. As a matter of fact, there are more boys in approved schools than girls. There are more boys in juvenile prisons than girls. There are more boys who struggle with learning abilities than girls. More boys struggle. You can actually even think back. The mothers you see who have children with disabilities, what is the common gender that you see? What is the common gender? The children you see who are carried, they have cerebral palsy, they have autism. Who are the most common gender? It's boys most of the time, yeah? Dyslexia. Boys are likely to be diagnosed with learning disabilities. Research has shown that. You can read the book by Dr. James Dobson, Bringing Up Boys. He gives the statistics so well that boys are more likely to be diagnosed, even by actually 3 times. Learning disabilities, mental illnesses, they affect boys. Alcohol, drugs, drunk driving. Boys are more vulnerable than girls. So it's more important for us to realize that boys, men struggle much more emotionally. When a country goes to war, men are the ones who are more vulnerable. So it's critically important for us to do that which we can. We need to preserve our generation, to take care of all genders, but particularly look at the emotional wellness of the men. So I'm going to share suggestions. Our time is moving very fast. So real quick, I will share suggestions because it's not all doom and gloom. I will share suggestions for raising a strong man, a man of valor. And the number 1 is that you need to teach your son the language of emotions. Teach your son the language of emotions. Can I tell you today that it is not biblical to say that men don't cry? It is cultural to expect men not to cry. It is not biblical. How do I know? In the book of Genesis, the story of Joseph, if you read the book of Genesis from chapter 7 all the way to chapter 51, there are about 5 incidents where the Bible records that Joseph wept. He wept even up to the time he was at the palace. He wept so bitterly, with so much agony. At some point he had to even isolate himself when he was being reunited with his brothers. And you know what? Joseph is the strongest man who ever lived. I know you think it's Samson. Samson was only strong physically. Joseph was strong emotionally because he turned down the advances of Potiphar's wife. However beautiful beautiful she was. He was a slave, so he didn't have much of a say. But he said, no, I cannot do such a great wickedness. And sin against God. So the strongest man that ever lived was able to cry. He cried, he wept, he broke down. So what is this culture telling men that men should not cry? Sometimes I see women coming to me and they are saying, my husband, he's not open with me. He keeps quiet a lot. Sorry, my husband is not open. I need him to be more open with me. And then when the man opens up and he starts weeping, the woman says, please, no, I don't know what to do. So what do you want? You are asking that you need your husband to be more open, more vulnerable. When he's vulnerable, now he's crying, now again you're complaining. They say to me, I'm not prepared, like, I don't know, I'm not used to men crying. And they get so terrified. Yeah? So the way our culture has conditioned us. The second suggestion I have is train your son to be teachable. Train your son to be teachable. A man does not know it all. Yeah? And we find in the Bible a man who was not teachable by the name of Samson. Physically strong but emotionally weak. He was so self-centered, so undisciplined, so arrogant that he lost his ability to be teachable. And that loss can make even the most talented person ineffective as a leader. If you're a leader, however talented you are, but you're not teachable, every time you face a problem, you want to react with violence. Because you cannot listen to anybody talking to you. You need to deal with your character at that point. So it's important to teach our sons to be teachable. Not to teach them that way manaume. You need to teach them a man is actually somebody who is teachable. You are learning with the ambassadors today that will make progress every day. You can learn from everybody. Even the worst person can be an example of what you shouldn't be as a man. Okay? So even when you think that you are as a confusion, they'll teach you how not to be. So they will be they'll be used as a bad example. So everybody is useful to you. The third suggestion is teach your son to provide and protect for those under his care. And when I say provision, I'm not necessarily talking about financial. That he has to be the one to have the money all the time. Things change. But you need to provide leadership, direction, a vision, and protect those under his care. The Bible says in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8, if anyone does not provide for his own, especially for those of his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So anybody who is a believer should provide and protect the people under his charge. The fourth suggestion, teach your son to respect women and women's bodies. There's an obsession that I see with the female bodies, and this leads to blaming victims of sexual violence. It's as if women have to take responsibility for men's sexuality that is out of control. So teach them. I have seen young men growing up objectifying the female body. They just see, and sometimes I think even us as adults, we pass this unknowingly. Have you heard something, how sometimes parents introduce their children? Maybe like I have a girl and I have a girl, she's in the room but she'll be here tomorrow, and boys. Sometimes you will introduce your daughter and you say, she's called Diana, so let me use her name. I'll say, this is Diana, this is my beautiful daughter Diana. So the moment I say beautiful, beauty is good, but beauty is fleeting. So the moment I say beautiful, you start looking at her, how does she look? Then I will say, and this is my strong and intelligent son, so and so. So my son is being applauded for these values, but then my daughter is being introduced based on her physical beauty. That's how sometimes we objectify our daughters, and we make, even not make really, but even men sometimes get obsessed with the female body. So sometimes they see a woman, they're just looking at the features. They're just looking at how this way, the dashboard, the waist, mbele iko sawa, kuna bright future behind, what headlights, that's what they're looking at, because they're just seeing the body parts. You just see a woman, you see body parts. You don't see her as a wholesome package made in the image of God. Yeah? So sometimes it's because of this cultural expectations that are passed that the female body should be used for your meeting your sexual desires and for your satisfaction. Unfortunately, sometimes it even passed in weddings. I've had sometimes ministers of the gospel telling women, your husband expects that you satisfy his sexual nonsense. So they're just saying it's like you are a body to go and satisfy, you know? So it's important for us to be keen on that and to teach our sons to respect women, to respect the place of women. Now, number 5, to avoid nagging. This is the 5th suggestion. I'll share 8 and end. Avoid nagging, talking at your son. Speak to your son calmly and firmly. Then enforce age-appropriate boundaries. This one I've been a victim sometimes, or a perpetrator of nagging and talking at my son. But then we need to learn to talk with them firmly and calmly. And if they don't follow through, follow it with consequences. A certain young man shared with me something that really broke my heart. He's 15, turning 16, maybe he's informed too. And he told me that mamangu alinipiga, like the man, you know, not even the chapa. He said mamangu alinipiga, and he was feeling so bad. I asked him what happened. He said he came with his grades, he had not performed well. Then when the mother looked, she asked, after all the school fees we are paying, this is what you're doing to us. Then the boy said, Mama, this is not the last exam I have done. The moment he said that, the mom landed on that young man with the blows and kicks. I couldn't even imagine, you know, landing on a 15-year-old. I was wondering if that child turned on that mother, she would be beaten with punk. Okay, the child is respectful, he didn't do that, but he totally, completely humiliated you. Surely, you cannot beat a 15-year-old. If you find yourself having to beat your son, even your daughter, and they are beyond 7, 8 years and you're beating them, honestly, something is wrong. No, you can't do that. That is so shaming. Worst of all, for performance. I mean, of course, our young people need to work hard, but by the time you are landing on them with kicks and blows, it's because you have a lot of unresolved issues. And I just told the mother, she was very, very open. I told her, no. Regardless of what your son has done, there is no way you can land on a 15-year-old beating him like that. You know, beating, kicking, blows and kicks and biting and throwing him against the wall. No, cannot do that. So number 6, model the qualities that you would like to see in your son. Before asking your son to be what you want him to be, can you model those qualities? Don't be like some of our fathers and grandfathers. They'll be drinking, they'll be saying, wewe, hii kitu hii usikunywe. Don't drink this alcohol. Fanya biti, usikunywe. That time they're just sitting, drinking the whole day in the marketplace. And they're saying, wewe, enda kwa shamba, soma, fanya hivi. Model the qualities before expecting the child to have them. Number 7, train your son to be ultimately accountable to God in everything. Yesterday, we looked at how to raise a child with character. Let your son know that accountability is to God. That whatever they do in secret is going to come out in the open. I'm telling you that if you woke up at 2 a.m., you went out and started raining. You planted beans, and then you lied to all of us, I have planted maize. Let me tell you, 2 weeks later, what will come out? Beans. And when you planted, it was in darkness. As we do know. And you say you have planted maize, we believe you. But beans will come out. And that's the law of nature. It's actually the law of sowing and reaping. It's not reaping and sowing. Don't confuse. The law of nature is the law of you sow, then you reap. Even if you don't believe in it, that law believes in you. You don't believe in it, but it believes in you. So, whatever you plant in darkness, so let's teach our sons that whatever we plant in darkness, ultimately, it's going to come out in public. The 8th and the last suggestion that I want to share is that teach your son to take care of himself. Teach your son to take care of himself. Let him know how to clean himself. Let him know how to shave. Let him know how to prepare a meal for himself. There are some of our sons who cannot even boil water. They boil water in a unguwa. How is Joshua lunch? And then they are getting married to someone's daughter, that now take care of me. Please let me tell you, parents, and even the young men who are here, women are not rehabs for badly raised men who cannot even clean after themselves. Women are not rehabilitation centers to just pick your team, chukue vile nilivyo, ati unipange, unioshe, wewe ni mtoto. Kama unataka upange, uoshe, ufanyie kila kitu, wewe ni mtoto. Now, don't start demanding respect and your conjugal rights. Because I don't respect my child in that way. So don't start claiming in the aspect of being taken care of. And sometimes even here women being told that your husband is your firstborn. What kind of psychology is that? If then I'm treating you as a child, in other aspects, don't expect me to be your partner in bed. I can't be your partner, you're my child. So you're going to remain a child. We can't then be partners in other things, but then again in this one you're a child. No. Please, I hear people talking about nowadays themselves, sipangwingwi, sijui sipangangwi, sijui sifanywi, jipange basi. Upangwingwi ni sawa, lakini jipange. Jipange. So please let's teach our sons, cut your nails, shave, brush your teeth, wash your clothes, please, and change your clothes. Please. It's not manly to stink like a skunk. It's not manly. And sometimes I hear people say, mwanaume ni effort, mwanaume ni jasho. Sita si anaoga. After that, it's okay. Jasho ni sawa, lakini jioni uoge. Please, kwanza Kisumu is hot, but there is no water problem. Shower. Prepare a simple meal for yourself. Like now we are all here. My husband is alone. I think he will be watching us. He's alone in Nairobi. And I made sure, because he was going to remain alone, I gave the house a break. So my husband is alone for 8 days. He has to cook for himself and wash the dishes and do whatever it takes, okay? So when we deny our sons the opportunity to learn, to do things for themselves, and then they start marrying women, and they're expecting the women to take care of them like their mothers, and then they start complaining that they're not being respected. And you see, I'm not saying that's entirely the reason, but that's part of it, because the way your psychology works, when you're taking care of someone, you'll be telling them the way you tell your son, wipe your nose, clean your eyes, what kind of shirt is that you're wearing, change your shoes. So you'll be talking to them, not even talking, you'll be talking at the person. You'll be talking at them, not with them. So let's teach our sons from a very early age, please clean up after yourself, take care of yourself, prepare something. Don't just be that if you're alone, utakula kwa hoteli all through. Or you just say, my wife is no longer taking care of me, I'll get someone to do it. Really? That because my needs are not being met, so I have to get somebody kunipanga. Jipange tafadhali, jipange. I want to maybe take a question or a comment because I promised yesterday. I've tried to end a bit on time so that I can take a question or comment before we can end. I want this to be a bit different than divine hour. So let me see if we have a question or comment. Maybe you can share a mic before we end. Either in raising a child of character or raising a man of valor. Yeah, we have a father right there. So just to say that many of these suggestions, if you have not applied them in your life, become very difficult to apply them in the lives of your children. Because they will be looking at you as the father, as the model. So if the father cannot boil water, then we don't expect the sons to learn how to boil water. It's difficult. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much for the presentation. The question I have is because of raising the boy child, and sometimes they go off on what you agreed. What are the best methods when you feel that you need to be disciplined? How best can you discipline a boy child? Thank you.
So let me see if I have understood what you asked. If like you have agreed on them doing something, then they have gone off. So what's the best way for you to discipline or to correct them? The best methods? Did I hear you?
Yes, and after probably correcting many times and agreeing together that next time when you give this, then there will be some disciplinary measures. So what I'm asking is, what are the best disciplinary measures for the boy child?
Thank you so much. So and this may cut across to both gender, but today we are talking about the boy child. So what you do is that you sit with them, you negotiate, You agree on the expected behavior based on the family values. And once you have agreed on the expected behavior, you agree on the consequences. Like now, an example that I hear parents complaining, you can say, you can go out to play football, but the time for coming home is 6:30. Just an example. This is the time for coming home at 6:30. If you don't come home at 6:30, you give reasonable time, of course, and you agree with them. If you come later than that, I'm afraid that tomorrow you have to miss out. You're going. So those are called, sometimes you apply natural consequences, sometimes logical consequences. The best are natural consequences. Natural consequences are like this. I give you pocket money, maybe we have agreed 1,000 for the month. You spend it within a week. The natural consequence is you will have no money the rest of the 3 weeks. See, this consequence is not you has manufactured it, equal. It's natural. You have spent the money in 1 week, so what happens the rest of the 3 weeks? You have no pocket money, okay? So you agree with them in advance, and when that happens, you resist the urge to rescue them. Don't rescue them. And when they come and they say, you know, I spent the money, try and understand how did you spend. Was it an emergency? If it wasn't, let them know that this must be very difficult for you. However, as we agreed, you will have no money for the rest of the month. If they want to throw a tantrum, they want to guilt you, say, oh, you know, you don't care about me, you don't do what? Do not also become emotional. Do not become emotionally charged. Because when you do that, you lose your authority over them. Because you now become at the same level. So maintain your calm. Let them say what, say everything and what you say. My son, this must be very difficult for you. It's also very difficult for me to watch you suffer with no pocket money for the month. However, as we agreed, you are to use it for the month, so the rest of the time, you will have to stay without. Of course, I'm assuming this pocket money is not for basic needs, it's not for food. You know, maybe they have the food, this is what they use maybe in school. So those are natural consequences. You can extrapolate them for other areas. So if what they have done, there are no natural consequences, so now you give them logical consequences. On the second part of, you have come late. So because you have come late, try and understand why have you come late. If the explanation is not valid, you tell them, because you came late today, I'm afraid tomorrow you're not going to play football. So they miss that following day. If not, you can say, tomorrow we will take away your gadget. You don't have a gadget. Maybe if they have 2 hours of internet, say, I'm sorry because you came late as we agreed. You came 30 minutes late, so we subtract 30 minutes from your gadget time. So you manufacture for them consequences that are logical. Otherwise, if for example a child comes late and you had agreed they come early, you beat them, that's not related with them coming late. The thing is you'll be displacing your anger on the child, and they may come early, but later on when they have their own place, they will now decide to compensate or overcompensate. They come at 2 a.m. because they're like, my father made me come early and it didn't make sense to me. But remember, before the consequences, you must talk. You know the way the Bible says in the book of Deuteronomy, I think that is chapter 6, talk to your children when you lie down, when you rise up, when you talk. So whatever whatever consequences you give, you must have negotiated, you must have talked, you must have agreed with them. Then after that, for you, your role as a parent is to calmly and firmly institute that consequence and be very consistent. And because if one time you have instituted, the next time they twist you, you're like, what about Sikai? Then you're not consistent. You will be a double-minded man or woman who is unstable in all their ways. Yes. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, Karibu. Maybe one more. You can take one more this side. Okay. Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad the fathers are asking. Do we have any question from our mother? Let me see. So we don't block you, then we end. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your very good presentation. I come from the lakeside, and there is old saying that I don't know how to translate it, but saying it. You see, there are people they know what it means.
I wish I could understand.
It's very hard. I mean, sometimes for you to pass a message, you have to get physical. I'm saying this, I often see peers, and especially I also tend to relate so much with young people. One of the things I have often seen some young people who have actually taught the line because negotiating into the war. At one point, the father really had to get harsh and physical. I have seen an African father getting physical with a 16-year-old. Later, 7 years, the 16-year-old can confess that I almost lost my life, had it not because of my father's brutality. I would not have completed school. We're living in a society that we want to appear so modern, and we want to be so Western. And we are coming up with this type of parenting, or which someone called hybrid. We want to forget, in as much as patriarchy in the African setup was a bit too harsh, but some of the men today in our society survive because of that patriarchy. If you look at the level of indiscipline amongst teenagers today and people actually below 28, the world, the attitude, and how actually they've been shaping their mentality, corporal punishment is no longer something we can negotiate. The question someone is really asking, where is the boy child and the values that we are talking about maybe in the next 10 or 15 years? Where do we really cut or talk the line between where should we go beyond where should we stop?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And that's a very nice question that I would even want us to unpack it, because if we unpack that question, we shall have gotten to the crux of the matter. Now, part of the reason, having coached counseled families and young people, I want to tell you something. Some people who you think have told the line, they are completely crushed and broken. I've had parents come to me, even currently, and they're like, this is my most disciplined child, my best child, a child who does this, a child who does the other, and this child has been struggling with depression. Some, even in a church I used to go to, a child who appeared the most active, pathfinder, adventurous, everything, the most disciplined, they committed suicide. Because when people are struggling with brokenness, we look at it and we think that they are towing the line. They are towing the line to where? And the one who is questioning, like asking and talking, we think they're indisciplined, but they are not. So what has happened, I see partly, because I'm not answering you all, the same parents, your age and younger, a bit older, who are beaten physical with the father at the age of 16, 18, they swore that I will never do to my child what was done to me. So they overprotect, which is unhealthy. They go completely to the other side, so they start negotiating the kadadika I was saying yesterday. Very unhealthy. So they overprotect, they indulge. Then they end up having entitled children. Either extreme, not healthy. So where is the healthy balance? The healthy balance is to know that your child is not your replica, not your photocopy, not your clone. Your child also has a say, they have the way they feel, they think, the way they experience life. And you as a parent to guide them within healthy limits. Okay? So you need to realize that you're not replicating your life in the life of your child. God has not called you to do that, but God has called this child to be an individual. My son gave an example, I'll share this really quick because it's a very current issue in our family. He doesn't mind me sharing. My son gave an example that when I was raising them when they were younger, especially the older ones there, I used to dress them in suits. Because me, I believed they are coming to church, they are wearing suits, complete with ties, three-piece, everything. They would dress in suits, and I thought they were looking very smart. And because they started public speaking and preaching, and I would feel good as a mother because they are dressed, in suits. As he grew older, I think about 10 years, and they have many suits at home, they faced me, and he said, it's not me, I'm not going to wear suits. Why it's not that I was empowered, I was going to say that this child is actually getting disrespectful. At one point, he even wore sports shoes to church. Oh my God. Now you can imagine how this looks. And so for people who are seeing this preacher child in a three-piece suit, now in sports shoes, okay, maybe in Kisumu you might be wearing this because of the weather. In Nairobi it's very strange to see Toto women means his leader, sports shoes. So if I didn't understand, I would have just said this child has now deviated after going to high school. But I sat down with him and we came to a compromise. I said, I do understand maybe the suits are much. And he said, I can't look like an old man when I'm a teenager. I can't wear a suit and my father is in a suit. And it made sense. So I say, but then how can we have a healthy balance? So we came to a healthy balance of smart casual. Just wear a trouser, not jeans or sweatpants, and wear a shirt, at least a shirt, and tuck it in, and wear shoes. Not stuffies, but just wear shoes. So we agreed at that, and I think we are both happy. Are we both happy? We are both happy. Yeah? So I've seen sometimes when parents don't understand, like you see your child, like you can see their hairs. Me, I believe in completely shaving. Then my husband shaves completely. So me, I believe in completely shaving. Now these guys want an afro. During COVID, you should have seen their hairs. So my son is preaching in church and the hair is like this. My sisters are even asking me, what's that hair? Because he has good hair. That hair. And for me, I'm like, hair? And I've seen fathers who literally fall on their sons and shake them on the ground. And they lose that child completely. Because for them, they think it's disrespect. So for me, when we talk, I understand he loves his hair. And really, it doesn't matter. Because at the age of 45, 50, when he starts having kipara and white hair, it doesn't matter. But he will shave. But genetically speaking, he will shave. So it's just simply for that time, yeah? So we need to understand as parents and get over ourselves. Because sometimes we want to raise a child so that we earn lower points. So that when people say, hey, so-and-so's child, it gives them as an esteem. Some of us have children esteem. Our children are the ones who give us an esteem. When they look like they are deviating, watu wananionaje? Mimi niko hapa nimeng'ara, mtoto wangu anatembea na sio shoes niko aje. So we need to get over ourselves and also to realize, why am I doing this? Why do I expect my child to be this way? Is it for the glory of God? Is it in the best interest of the child? Or is it simply for my ego? Yeah? So I completely agree in terms of the parents being the captain of the ship. And I don't entirely believe in that thing of saying positive, positive, positive. Yesterday I said we can tell our children that you're wrong. Because that one I used to say, sports shoes, no. But then, we can wear a shirt. But t-shirt, ayapana. Please don't wear. But then we discuss, we negotiate, we agree. Okay. Thank you so much. I want to pray. Then we can end the session for today. Thank you for coming. Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you because we pray that you have been with us and you have spoken to us. I want to pray that even as we go, give us the Berean spirit. Give us safety, give us security, give us understanding and knowledge. Continue opening your word so that we can learn more and so that we can benefit, that our lives may be transformed by the renewing of the mind. I ask a special blessing upon each and every person and even their families, Lord. Provide for them, meet everyone at their very point of need. I pray that, Lord, you may turn the hearts of the father to the hearts of their children, and the hearts of the children to the hearts of their father, that, Lord, your name may be glorified, we may be united, Lord Jesus, because Christ came so that we may have life and have it more abundantly. May we have it in our lives, Lord. And if the devil has made any inroads to kill, steal, and destroy, we want to rebuke him in the name of Jesus. We pray that you will surround us, you will cover us with your precious blood, that, Lord, you may unite us and bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. We pray this believing and trusting in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Amen. God bless you.